Hello and welcome to another episode of Intune.Training, the Steve and Adam Show, with Jake, the executive assistant. Hey guys, sorry, I'm going to keep flubbing that one for a bit. So Ben is taking the night off, and so we got Steve and Jake here, and we are going to jump in and do a quick run through of configuring the Windows Defender Firewall as part of your Intune configuration. And we were going to cover her using a script to do some importing of the rules in case you have a lot of firewall rules that you need to import from your domain. So this is really coming about because I've been dealing with migrating from on-premises group policies to Intune policies for the last week, and this will carry on for a bit longer, I think. Even using group policy analytics and things, there's still a fair amount of mapping back and forth of trying to figure out where things need to go. And so as I was going through this, I found this link on the docs to this cool script and said, hey, this cool topic. Maybe folks don't know about this one, so we can give it a shot.
100%. So yeah, so Adam's going to share his screen, and then we're going to go step through how to run the script and pull the information out. So for the expedience of the session, we have pre-staged this computer with our policies and pre-installed it. So yeah, so just
if we look in our Windows settings, we simply, so it's my lab, so I've got everything wide open. So I've got the firewall disabled for the most part, which is probably why we're not going to have firewall policies listed here.
I think it's under system services.
Here, this is easier. And no, it would have been Defender by itself, but because I've got the firewall disabled, I think it's not giving us the rules. But so the client is getting the rules from group policy. So I just want to show you this. So this is just in my global domain policy. I've got two rules: allow inbound all and outbound all for the domain on the domain.
I'm just going to call this out.
Mm-hmm.
For those watching at home,
don't do this.
This is Adam's lab. He is using default domain policy for a demonstration, and doing inbound and outbound to everything is not recommended.
Nor setting this in your default domain policy is not recommended either. This is Adam's lab, and Adam's doing what he wants to do to get through things. So
disclaimer.
Yes, do not do this. All right, so let's carry on. Okay, so given the fact that it's disabled and all that sort of stuff, if we go into the Windows Defender Firewall, you'll see on the workstation itself, you'll see that the firewall is in fact disabled and it's managed by group policy. But if we go and look at our rules, you can see that we still get the domain rule applied here. And this is important because the script that we're going to look at in a minute will cover those options a little bit on whether we want to import local policies or just the domain policies, the group policy applied policies. So you can see that we've got the two rules here, and so we should.
One thing that I'm going to diverge on here is if you're using AAD join devices, your computers are no longer on a domain. So the domain policy or domain profile where you selected here won't actually allow you to access the network. You need to use the private profile. And you need to educate your users when it pops up and say, do you trust this network? Yes, no, on the right-hand side that we all ignore and just go, whatever. If you hit no, it gets classified as a public profile. You need to set your network to use it as a private.
Cool. So the other thing I want to point out about the rules is that these are all the default rules. And so we don't want to migrate these up to Intune unless we specifically want to change one of these rules. But if we were going to do that from group policy, we would obviously be pushing this down from the domain. But if you wanted to, I guess let's flip this around. So I'm doing this as a conversion from on-premises into Intune. And so I've already got my group policy, I've already got my rules configured in my group policy. And so I only want to migrate the things that are part of my group policy. However, if I wanted to configure a bunch of rules for devices and do that to then turn around and upload into Intune, then that would be where I would come here and I would actually delete the rules, and then I would create individual new rules that I wanted to configure. So then ultimately I would tell it to migrate local rules as part of the migration, and then it would copy everything that's currently configured on the device up into Intune. When we get to the script, that will make a little bit more sense. So let's jump back over. Let's jump over into the Intune portal, endpoint.microsoft.com. If this is your first time here, so then we're going to jump over into devices and configuration profiles to show you where you used to be able to set this. So
you still can.
Normally,
it's super important to clarify. You still can set it here, but you're going to have more functionality using the other method that Adam's going to show you.
Yes. So I meant to say not where you used to be able to, but where you used to normally would set this. So, but they've added new things, and so we want to cover that. So just want to show you the difference on where we're moving from and where we're moving to. So this would be under the endpoint protection for your profile type, and you hit create, and under here you get all of the different Windows Defender.
So we give it our awesome name.
And let's put some stars in it.
Of course.
Ben's not here, so just confuse him on that one. Okay, so under here we would have the Defender Firewall and be able to make all of our configuration. Specifically, we've got our domain network and could configure things here. And then we've got rules.
So one of the cool things that I want to call out here as well is that rule merging option there. So this is where you can sit there and say, I'm only going to allow one firewall policy and you can't set any policies from anywhere else, or you can go and add. So as an example, Microsoft Defender Firewall rules from the local store. If you set that to block, I think it's all disabled. What's the drop down for that? So allow or block. So if you're sitting there and saying block, that means that you're not allowing your end users to create a firewall policy or firewall rule, even if they have admin privileges for that network.
Yeah, so everything would have to be pushed down from wherever you're dictating through here, through the rule merging. Yep. But let's not get too caught up in this one because we're trying to promote not using this one, but moving over into the Endpoint.
It exists in the other one as well.
I know, but let's talk about it there.
Yes, okay.
Anyway, so you could also create rules here too, but you'll notice you got to just go and add them manually. And that get a bit tedious here. So let's switch over to Endpoint Security now, which if you haven't seen it, we did a video with Matt Shadbolt, formerly of the Endpoint Security. I don't know what the name of the team was. But he came to
Security Blade team.
There you go. He came and talked to us about this. All of the new stuff under Endpoint Security. He has now moved to a different team as a senior PM. Principal PM. I don't know things. I'm just trying to say stuff. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'll just carry on with the important bits here. So under here, we get to do firewall. And you'll know there also are security baselines, and the security baselines have firewall settings in them as well. But you can do everything directly here as well under the create policy, Windows 10 and later. And you'll notice all of this stuff only has the Windows 10 and 8 later drop down. The previous screens have more
Windows 8.1 and others, yeah.
Okay, so now you've got these guys broken out into two different pieces. So you've got the firewall, and then you've got rules separately. So if we just go in and we can create a new firewall policy.
Ben's firewall.
Okay, and then we can go in and configure all of the settings that we want to configure.
So all these settings will be equivalent to what we saw previously. They may just be appearing slightly different. So yes. You'll see here where we have the domain network. Then you have the ability to go through and change all of this. And the in this scenario where you've got domain, as we mentioned earlier, you need to have a hybrid AAD joined device to use the domain network. All of the rest of them are based on non-domain joined.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And so, for the purposes of this conversation, we're not going to tell you how to configure your firewall. That's not. We want to show where. We want to show you where to configure your firewall. That's all we're attempting to do here. So the rest of this is just following the normal deployment process. And so then the all of this is leading up to the, hey, there's this other thing that we really want to show you, which is the script to import your firewall rules.
Yep, which is the same page.
Yeah, I should stop closing things. Create policy, platform, and so now we're going to do Windows Defender Firewall rules, create, and
so, all right.
Hold on. We'll get there. All right. So similarly, you could come in and you could manually create a new policy or new rule, just like we saw in the other location. So if you're like I was, in my case, I had 40 rules to migrate, and that was going to be quite tedious trying to come through and migrate all of those rules. And so instead of doing it this way and creating the rules manually, discovered that on the docs site, which we will link to in the description, there is a Endpoint Security Firewall rule migration tool, and you can simply download the tool and run it. And there's information here on how to use it. So as I was mentioning earlier, the local rules matter. So if you want to only import local rules, if you want to include the local rules in your migration or not, you flip that switch on or not. And also you can include disabled rules. Now, there are some settings listed here that are unsupported, so you need to review this list and see if you've got any things that don't line up with, or that are in this list that may break with the rules that you've got configured. And this doc covers all of the other information, all of the other things you need to have configured on your specifically down here, the permissions and stuff. So you need to be an Intune Endpoint Security Manager, Intune Service Admin, or Global Admin to use this. And because it's talking to the graph, you probably also need to have delegated the ability to run graph commands on your tenant as well. So I've already downloaded the rule, or the
yes, but you deleted it.
I did, because I was trying to reset this machine to show the whole demo. Okay, here we go. So let's go get it again. We're going to extract, and we need to run this as an admin. Now I guess we've already shown, so we've already got all of our rules sitting here that we want.
Make the font a bit bigger there, Adam.
Yeah. What was that? Okay. So you're going to set your execution policy. Now, another thing to note here is, especially if you're doing this on just an Intune only device that's not domain joined, so you could just build a new machine off of the Windows CD, log into the local account, go in, create all your rules, and then run this utility on it. And so there's no requirement for which device you're running this on, other than you need to have rules on the machine for it to migrate them.
At the end of the day, there's the other side of that is Microsoft automatically will leave the default rules there unless you explicitly define that you need to have rules.
Yes.
So for most organizations, you'll be able to get away with the standard rules with the addition of adding, say, a Teams rule.
Yep. And for our environment, it's one of those deals where there's a lot of legacy migration opportunities there, and there's definitely some rationalization that's occurring there. I mentioned I have 40 rules. Okay, we got to vet those out and make sure that we're not just like duplicating default rules or things like that from some legacy thing that we carried forward before. So let me pause here. So the script is prompting me now. We've already run this on the machine, and so it has already downloaded the module and other related components from the PowerShell gallery or wherever it's pulling NuGet and things. So it's worth noting that when you're running this, you're going to experience a little bit longer delay as it's installing all of those components and things, and you may get an additional prompt or two asking if you want to run those commands and things. So at this point, all it's doing is asking us for it to enter a new profile name. So this would be the imported firewall rules demo. And then we'll hit yes. Or so we can determine if we want to send telemetry to Microsoft. We don't care at this point. And then
so that telemetry is around when the file's being uploaded, not beyond anything on that computer.
Yeah, and it's just to help, it's to help the people who wrote the script, figure out, hey, are we having any issues with this? Okay, so
and
you see
also note that we're not doing the included local rules switch above as well.
And actually what I want to do is before we go to the portal, I would like to, I don't want to have us spend the time on all of them, but I want to delete all of the local rules or most of the local rules. And also I mentioned there was the option to do the disabled migrate what was the switch?
Include disabled rules.
Include disabled rules. So you could either delete or I could just disable all these rules instead. So there's that instead, which seems to be a significantly worse experience on the eyes. Hold on. I'll spare us all. Okay, so while we'll go over here and refresh our firewall, and we should have a new import firewall rules demo.
And you'll see that it put -0 at the end, which means that it allows to handle that version iteration.
Yep. And we now have our 2 rules. And you could come here and edit these if you needed to. So there we go. And so let's go back and see. Okay, so we've hopefully disabled most of these rules, and I'm going to go to this one and just go ahead and do the delete on them because I think that will be faster. And so ultimately we're going to get one of the locally configured, the company portal, and let's say I want to block the connection on company portal. So this would be the scenario that you'd be looking at here, where you're taking the defaults that are here, which are great. I mean, it's a huge pile of rules, and then you're just disable everything that you don't want to migrate, make the changes to any of the defaults that you want to then change, and then rerun the script. And let's try and see if we can.
You
gotta put the switch.
Yep. Okay, so include local rules, and we will call this one Intune or import firewall rules demo. Let's see how well it handles the version. Enter a unique profile name.
Fancy.
4-band.
Okay. Interesting.
So now
I've not used that switch yet, and so it was interesting that it didn't import the domain.
Refresh. Yep.
So is it only going to have the one?
Yep.
Yeah, it did. Interesting. So it didn't pick up. It only picked up the local. It didn't also include the local. Is what I.
Yeah.
Will include any local created. Note that Yeah, so
it looks like it should just append all of it.
It seemed like it should have, unless there's some reliance on the existing rules. Maybe let's check that. So we can delete the existing rules and see, or delete our new rules that we just put in, and try again and see what happens. I mean, my expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't either, but I don't know why else it would, like, it. Yeah.
This may come down to it needs to be. It allows you to build them multiple together.
Yeah. No. Okay. So using include local rules really is only local rules.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's some feedback we might be able to provide for the documentation on this. It's not a bad thing. It's just that was a little confusing.
Just an understanding.
Yep.
Because then you can go and assign multiple policies for the firewall rules to that policy, and it will apply them all.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I would suspect that this ends up being mostly used for migration purposes, like in my case where we're migrating group policies. I can't imagine that you really generally would go into the firewall to go configure a bunch of stuff here and then import them into here when you could just come in and create them directly in Intune. Yep. But the scenario that I would think you potentially would use this is if you've got, let's say you've got an app that prompts you to say, hey, do you want me to create firewall rules for this app? Yep. And it auto creates them. It saves you a step maybe.
Yeah, especially if it creates like 5 or 6 different rules. That makes complete sense. And look, for most organizations where they've had the firewall on the client side, they've got a whole heap of policies that need to be handled. Yeah, this makes complete sense for that migration conversation. Just the one thing, as I'll keep reiterating, is just make sure that you look at it and make sure the profile that you're targeting is going to be public or private, not domain, if you're doing AAD join only.
Yeah, good call. That's actually an interesting configuration change as well. So if I've got all of my rules on my domain profile, and then I'm moving to Azure AD only, and I still want to have the same functionality, potentially would need to migrate those rules from one to the other.
Yep. And how you ensure that you have security associated to that is you then say the destination IP needs to be in this range.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good one. Interesting consideration.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to go take a look at the log file and see if there were any errors on that export. For the one that did the include local rules, maybe it even said that it didn't.
Yeah.
Just
an idea.
All that block of text rolled through. I didn't even bother to read the text that says, "Hey, this dumped out some logs." Good call. So import it to Intune, and then we can look at.
That's actually an XLS file.
Yeah, I don't have.
Which don't have Excel. So just
go get Open Office real quick.
Yeah, it's on me. No. Just copy it to your local computer, Adam.
Oh, this is way easier.
Upload it to
OneDrive.
Yep.
I'm just going to open Excel on the web, because why not?
Problem solving.
Why it dumps it to an Excel file instead of a CSV, we won't know, but there we go. New blank work.
On there. Either.
We'll see.
Logs.
Which one's the last one? This one?
That one, yep.
Of course, this won't work.
Your OneDrive is ready. Click the button.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, we don't know what we're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Look at that.
Okay. Who said you needed Office on your computer?
I assumed you could do that. I never actually tried that. That's neat. Okay.
So this is where if you've got a whole heap of rules, you can then look at the filtering and handle it. Yeah, and you'll see on column E, their profile types. And you'll see that this applies to domain, private, and public. So that will work no matter what. But if you sit there and go, well, I only want it to work on my private, then that is where you need to set your remote address ranges in row K.
Yep. Well, this is the log though, but yes, I agree. Yeah,
this isn't the log.
Yeah,
this is
you're not going to change it here.
Yeah, this is the configuration that's being set up. But yes, you don't change it here. This is more just saying these rules were imported into Intune.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Yes, because the rules, the script is generating that Excel file, and then that Excel file is what's being sent through the API, the Graph API on the back end. It's not actually the log, but it can be used as the log, and so they're yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, follow you.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool. Good deal.
I think that covers it.
Figure out how to unshare again. Hold on. See how, so we can sign off. There we go.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks guys for hanging out.
Thanks, Adam. And, that was fantastic.
Hopefully you find this useful. Definitely, go read. There are other people that are more security minded than us that will give you more guidance on what to configure. But at least we hopefully showed you how to move over to using the endpoint security location there. And one final note on that is that there are a lot more settings in the endpoint security side of things. So the guidance here is use those first.
Yes.
Before using the other items under the configuration profiles. So that's where
newer is always better.
Yeah, the newer is better in this case, and that is where the work is being done. Those are the things that are being worked on. So definitely migrate over there as you have cycles, or if building new, definitely start there.
Definitely.
That's it.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks,
you.
See you next time.